Then we come to phonology, and the popular word for phonology is sound laws. Maybe you've heard of Grimm's Law. But there's laws for every language family. For example, in Castilian, we have the H, which is, I believe, in most dialects is silent now. Ava, hembra, hilo, hoja, humo. And in French, these same words all have F. And we know from Latin that the same words in Latin have F. And this is what we call a regular phonetic correspondence or sound law. It's not really a law, it's a tendency, but it's a way to scientifically control whether a similarity is by accident or if it really goes back to something historic. So the H here, the F here, in all these words and more indicate that there's a regular pattern of change. So I think I already really said this. Basic vocabulary, morphology, phonology, all tell us the genetic origin of the Castilian language is Vulgar Latin, spread by the Roman Empire. And the several layers of cultural vocabulary, the original Vulgar Latin layer, the Celtic layer, the Germanic layer, the Arabic layer, and others, indicate those contacts with people speaking other languages. Castilian borrowed those words. So the same type of analysis can be made of the Basque language to determine genetic origin. We'll look at these three things: basic vocabulary, morphology, and phonology. And then after that, to determine cultural contacts, we will look at the cultural vocabulary and several layers again in Basque, just as in Castilian and in English. So a good example of a very basic word is the word for tooth. English tooth, Dutch tand, Welsh dant, Castilian diente, Greek gondi, Armenian atam, Persian dandan, Hindi dan, and many others continue the ancient Indo-European word for tooth, which is reconstructed as something like edont, and this is dated maybe 6,000 years ago. But the phonetic forms have changed a little bit in each language, but the word itself has remained in all these languages across Europe and Asia and others, in German. All the other Romance languages have the same word for tooth. Slavic languages have a different one. So this is why we need to focus on the most basic and stable words in order to discover old linguistic relationships. We need to look at the words that have been used, that have stayed the same for thousands and thousands of years. And there's a good chance that this is true in all languages to some extent. So the Basque word for tooth is horx, or orx. If we are looking for possible relatives of the Basque language, horx should be one of the basic words we focus on. And if we search for similar words for tooth in Europe and Asia, we do not find anything similar until we come to the Caucasus Mountains, where the Lak language has something like karch, for the meaning tooth. And we can see the initial ka related to ha, and the combination of a r and an affricate th or ch. And other languages in the Caucasus and Dagestan have similar words with related meanings: fang tooth, canine tooth, or molar tooth. For example, afwa, gorjo, which means fang, sezi, gorju, which means molar, and others. This could be accidental, if not for the fact that these North Caucasian languages share many other basic words with Basque. So looking more at Lak, this is the North Caucasian language of Dagestan in the Caucasus Mountains. And I already mentioned the word horts, karch, which I think corresponds to Basque horts, corresponding to Basque mi or mi, which is tongue. Lak has maz for the Basque word for fire, shu. Lak has su. It's a glottal affricate, u. The word for earth, lur, is in Lak is luch, chi, and there's a strange phonetic development I can't go into now, but it's too technical. But the initial consonant is the same, and the first vowel is the same. Similarly, in the Basque word for you, is su, in Lak, zu means you plural, more than one person, and this is the old meaning of Basque too. That su originally meant you plural. And then finally of this group, Basque gauche, hunger or hungry, in Lak is kashi. This K with a colon is an intensive consonant, so it's kind of long. Gashi. I can't pronounce it correctly, but. And another Caucasian language is Chechen, and again these very basic words. The word for I in Basque is degi, and Chechen is something like that. This little sound here is a pharyngeal, which I'm not sure I can pronounce. The word for ear in Basque is melabri, and in Chechen is ler, with a different suffix. The word for old, sar, in Chechen is shira. The word for dry, agor, in Chechen is ik-a. This sign looks like an equal sign, indicates that class prefix comes before the word, and it can be a different prefix depending on the class of the word. The same with the verb to die in Basque is il or il, and Chechen is out. The woods in Basque is Oyhan, Oyan, and Chechen is Hun with a pharyngeal H. And there are many others, I'm just giving a few examples. In the Avar language, another North Caucasian language, Basque Adar for horn, and Avar is Tla. This is a strange sound, a lateral affricate we call it. The Basque word for dog is or is hoi in Avar. The word for earth in Basque, lur, is rat in Avar. So it's some kind of transfer, metathesis of the L and the R. And it's also related to that lot word we looked at earlier. Basque word for smoke, ge. Some dialects is ge. In some dialects has a long vowel. In Navarre it's tui with a glottal ge. The word for day in Basque is egun. Sometimes a very good egur. In Avar is ko. And the same word exists in other Caucasian languages. When we come to morphology, this is just one aspect of Basque morphology, and I think it's actually fossilized morphology. These prefixes no longer have a meaning, but we see these prefixes over and over again in Basque words, nouns, and I think they are related to the class prefixes in Caucasian. So there's a prefix for inanimate nouns, which is a w or b, and animate feminine nouns, something like y or e, and animate masculine nouns are u. And then the fossilized prefixes in Basque, I think, are de, d, which I think is just two variants of the same one, and similarly e or ou are different variants of the same prefix corresponding to these. I believe this indicates that in an earlier stage of Basque, there was a system of noun classification into several classes or genders, a system that persists in some but not all East Caucasian languages. So some Caucasian languages have lost this classification. And some of them have not only 3 or 4, but some even more genders or classes.